is not, strictly speaking, a psychedelic. Before it became illegal in psychotherapy as a lay therapist. And I think MDMA is the greatest possible drug for that. It's a good drug for people who are naive in the psychedelic area because, strictly speaking, it doesn't give you psychedelic effects. Some people get psychedelic effects on anything, but MDMA, MDMA is an insight drug. It may be used for raves and things, but its greatest use is for personal insight without fear. And I've heard several psychotherapists say that with using MDMA, the patient and the therapist save around 6 months worth of time and money. And there are other drugs. 2CB is also very good, but 2CB is a full-blown psychedelic. And you'd want to do MDMA work for at least 6 months to a year before you start with the MDMA. There probably are other very good drugs, but the drawback of some of them is that they last too long. Too long in the sense that you can only have one patient a day. And therapists have to make a living too. So that's the answer I have at all. Thank you.
Actually, one of the concepts with the use of MDMA in therapy is the dropping of the personal barrier. Very often, from what I understand in therapeutic psychotherapy, sometimes it takes 6 months of visits every week to open yourself up, drop your own barrier to be able to address your own problems. And the therapist has to be patient to put up with that. The MDMA can make it occur in an hour and a half. And hence the entire therapeutic repair can start on the day of visit rather than 6 months after the day of visit.
This is mainly because the first thing that has to be established in a therapeutic relationship is trust. And for somebody who is really damaged and hurting, it's very difficult to trust anyone, and the therapist is included. With MDMA, somehow it manages to allow the trust right away or very quickly. We don't know how it does it, but it does.
Yeah, hi. I think drugs are a wonderful way of exploring different realms of consciousness, but that the repeated use of them to attain those states of consciousness is hopelessly materialistic and dangerous to the individuated self that Western evolution of consciousness had worked so hard to achieve. Do you have any thoughts on your creations as potential contributions towards sub-rational states of consciousness and you know, that people lose themselves to the being of the drug and become consumed by the line?
Well, one of do you want to hit?
No.
Okay. One of the words I very much dislike when I hear it used, because it's often used to avoid the real problem, is the word of addiction. I don't like the term of drug addiction because it implies no, let me say what I do like, and that is the dependency. You can be physically dependent or you can be psychologically dependent on a drug, or both. And I think the idea of any drug dependency has taken from your choice, from your choosing the route you want to take, having given up that freedom of choice. So I'm very strongly against the chronic use and reuse of any drug. And this applies to not just psychedelics, but to stimulants or sedatives or things that are actually required to be used again and again. I think they should be altered, should be changed around to other alternatives. The idea of being totally dependent upon a drug, I find a very uncomfortable feeling.
Almost every one of the spiritual traditions and religions warn against using drugs. I think that my hunch is that is because they are talking to the majority of people, and it's a very tempting path, and the people who wrote the books for the various religious traditions probably knew the effects of visionary plants. And I think that they wanted to avoid, or have their followers avoid, habituation or dependency. But also because once you realize that you can make contact with whatever you want to call it, God or the source or the ground of being by yourself without an intermediary, it's liable to put some of the gurus out of business. I think that what some of the psychedelics do is they tell you that there is someplace else, or another reality, or many other realities, and it can confirm your hope that there is a spiritual realm inside yourself, and that there is something, an intelligence, a consciousness that drives the universe. The rest of it, I think, cannot be done with drugs all the time. You have to do some kind of spiritual practice, and so that you can take the lessons of the psychedelic experience into your daily life. Otherwise, the whole thing is pretty much wasted.
Dorian Sagan, the love child of Carl Sagan and Lynn Margulis, has written of drugs as, and this is his term, exogenous hormones. That is, hormones that lie outside of our bodies. And in that, there's the implication that we need these exogenous hormones in order to develop a fully mature form as human beings. Could you comment on that, please?
I think one of my comments that came into mind was my first mescaline experience. That's maybe an exogenous hormone. I've been exploring various psychoactive drugs for quite a while. Different, well-known here, different things, different compounds, different plants. And it was in the I guess 1950s that I actually took my first mescaline experience. And I suddenly realized that there was a great deal of I learned not from the mescaline was not doing it. The mescaline was allowing me to do it. And I would see something and I'd interpret something, but the visual, the colors I saw I had never seen before, but they were not in this white crystal, they were in me. I was aware of them, but I had never acknowledged them. So this is a sense of a hormonal thing, and indeed exogenous would be a good word for it, because it came from outside of me. But once it allowed me to understand why, as a child, I would sit and look up into the flower beds above me and see things that I could not see in a normal way, I relived all that, and I began understanding why I did that. And the relationship of me and other people was obvious to me, because I was avoiding other people in some ways by going into the flower bed and looking at the flowers. And I just never quite thought of it. I see a bee gathering honey, or whatever a bee gathers from a bunch of pollen, I guess, yeah. And to see the point of view of the flower from the bee's point of view. At the end of that very life-changing experience, my first mescaline experience has changed the whole direction of my research and my interests. One of the things I was telling someone a couple of days ago, I had a flower that I had growing in the house. I was living in Berkeley at that time. And I could not pick the flower in the field. It would destroy the flower.